Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Academy Chat with the National Association of Academies of Science. It is December the 9th, and our topic today is about volunteers and volunteering. And I'm Amanda Fuller. I'm the Executive Director for the Kentucky Academy of Science, and I'm the President this year of the National Association. And I want to welcome everybody, whether you're here with us today or watching the recording. I'm really excited about this program because it does actually relate a lot to me and the work that I do, and I hope it's helpful to some of our colleagues across the country. So I want to just do a little round of introductions. And this is like my favorite part of these programs is really for us to meet each other from wherever we are in different academies. And I learn a lot from people. I just like knowing who's out there. So thanks folks for tuning in today. Let us start with Hallie. If you want to start off that introductions and then pass it to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Hallie Thompson, and I've been working with NAAS for, has it been 8 months now or something like that? It's been a while, staffing and helping to build capacity and figure out how the organization is going to move forward into 2023. One of my primary roles has been helping organize the Academy chats and to get academies talking to one another and trying to figure out how we can move forward together and use expertise from different states to help out other states that may be struggling in those areas. And I will popcorn it to Michael. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, there's a glitch there. They're getting unmuted. Yeah, I'm Mike Cohen. I'm a representative at large, but I'm on the board of directors of the Washington, D.C. Academy of Sciences. And by the way, I'm also a member of the Virginia Academy of Sciences, so that comes up very often. And I'm right here in Crystal City, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And that's actually the view of my window out there. You can see.
And we'll all be seeing views like that in just a few months.
All right, and I'm Jennifer Hadley. I'm with the Minnesota Academy of Science, and I've been here with the Academy for just over a year now, and have been getting some great training on volunteers, but I also have something like 25 years of experience of doing working with volunteers one way or another. So excited to be here.
Awesome, thank you. If anybody else pops on, let's also, make some time and give other folks a chance to introduce themselves when they get here later. But Hallie, I will turn it over to you to facilitate the program. I guess we can be a little bit less formal if we just have a small group today, but I'm excited to hear what Jennifer has to share and to talk among ourselves about best practices, worst practices, and everything in between.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm super excited to have a conversation today about volunteer engagement. I think that's something that any nonprofit struggles with, not to mention nonprofits that are working in a space that's as complicated as the space that we all work in. There's a lot of different moving parts, and keeping them all moving can be really challenging. So I know Jennifer has a lot of really good experience from 25 years working at STEM nonprofits that we can all hopefully learn from. And we were talking earlier, it sounds like she's going to have a few slides, talk about that experience and hopefully start some conversations or some ideas in our head, and then has a few slides of questions to get us all discussing things that we think might be best from our perspectives of our experience at our individual academies of science. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jennifer to take it over and share her slides. Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, let's get my slideshow going. Well, good. Yeah, I'm excited to share with you about what I know and what my experience has been in engaging and training volunteers. and some of the things that we are working on at the Minnesota Academy of Science. And so where to start is how to better engage volunteers. I think the first part of it is to have a really nice targeted recruiting methodology. We have a form, a volunteer form that people fill out, and it asks them if they want to judge the state science fair or volunteer at the Science Bowl, help recruit other volunteers, if there are any other events or tasks that they want to do, specifically working with us, if they want to lead any hands-on science activities with kids. Because then that helps us do some good targeted messaging and select the people who did check those boxes. Yes, I want to do some hands-on science. If we have a specific need, we can ask those people. Or when science fair is rolling around, looking for science fair judges, we'll ask those people first so that we're not bothering everybody with our ask for volunteers. So I think that's been nice. Part of the form also asks them for their employer and job title and area of expertise. This way, like the other day, we needed some people to do some coding experience or some coding work with kids, computer science. So we were able to query our volunteers according to maybe computer science and coding technology experience. That's really nice to have in that form. One thing that I really have loved that was kind of surprising to me was just asking, do you have anything else to add in that form? People say, oh, yes, I volunteered or I participated as a Science Bowl student. As a student, I participated in Science Bowl, and I would love to help coordinate that this year. So people just add whatever it is they want to, and then we can learn a little bit more about them and then target them if, specifically call them or email them if something really relevant comes up for them. And one final thing in that volunteer form that I was really surprised by is asking, how did you hear about us? I figured it was word of mouth through friends, colleagues, employers, but the biggest draw for us has been people simply Googling volunteer for STEM in Minnesota. So yeah, surprising. So that also gives you an idea. If you ask that question in your form, then that gives you an idea of how do they hear from us and what's working. So another fun thing that I learned this year in attending a training is really using some engaging recruitment messaging. So instead of saying, we need science fair judges, how about something like join the team, serve your community. What's a science fair without judges? Join your community. Come inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers. What's another thing that we do at science fair is networking with your peers and provide crucial feedback for student researchers. Trying to get at what brings people in. And instead of kind of like, we need help. That's not as engaging as, join the team, serve your community. And maybe sometimes people have a commitment to diversity and inclusion. And maybe some of the work that we do focuses on diversity and inclusion. And maybe people say, oh, yes, that's what I want to participate in that to fulfill my commitment. And maybe they are so inspired by seeing how creative and smart that the youth are. What is it that people are really excited about? Should we address any of these things in the chat, or should I continue? Let's see. Oh, no, it's just chats. Okay, good. Nothing. And yeah, but also interacting with like-minded peers, I think, is a big reason of why people volunteer. Getting out into the community and hanging out with people who they're similar to. Another important part of engaging volunteers is to have a position description, a nice, accurate description of what you're looking for. What are the requirements for the job? You know, you've got to have a PhD, or maybe a bachelor's and 5 years of experience. Whatever it is, you really need to note that. And then days and hours. Is it, you know, just one certain day, or are you looking for every Wednesday at 3 p.m.? The location, is it virtual or in person? And I even add the address in if it's a certain school where we need some people to volunteer with some hands-on science. I'll say the general area that it's in, and then the address, so people can know, oh, that's too far for me, or you know, hey, that's in my neighborhood. And then, of course, the tasks. What will they be doing? So just like we write job descriptions for employers, it's nice to have a job description for volunteers. And this is one that we're working on, is connecting with volunteers throughout the year. People come to the science fair, judge at our science fair because that's just what they do and they love it, or science bowl competition. They've been doing this for years and it's just what they love. What about, and our events are usually January through April. Well, what about May, June, July, August, September? You know, there are months when we're potentially losing those people, whether it be they decided to get involved with something else, or if we're trying to fundraise. We really are trying to keep people engaged throughout the year. So what we're trying is having a volunteer email. If we send our newsletter out at the beginning of the month, every month, then we're doing a volunteer email to touch base with people the middle of the month. One was a video that I had made of highlighting a volunteer and what brings him to the Minnesota Academy of Science to kind of inspire other volunteers to do the same. I had a little video about why I'm here, what my connection is to the organization. And we also sent a letter to people with one of our stickers in the summer, and the people who, at least whose addresses we had. We're also thinking about maybe a volunteer dinner during the summer when it's nice, everyone get together and hang out. Sending out gifts is always something we're thinking about. You're also thinking about, well, what's the expense for that too? And is it worth it for, you know, do people want these things or not? So, so far we've just given the stickers out. And it is a balance between engaging them throughout the year and trying not to have too many messages in their inbox. So for trainings, COVID has opened up, you know, the whole world so much for so many virtual opportunities that we hadn't explored so much before. For part of my job, we used to always meet on every Saturday before the science fair and review the paperwork for the kids. And some people really got frustrated because it's like, no, that's when I have time for my kids, or we're doing other family things, or that's when I go to the dog park. And so now being able to do virtual trainings and work, it has not only opened up to people can from broader geographical areas can join us without having to do the drive. But also it has opened up a lot of flexibility for people who don't want to be spending their Saturdays doing this volunteer work. So people are happier oftentimes because they're not spending that time driving. And it also limits their time commitment too, so that it's 2 hours rather than potentially 4 hours if they have a long drive. And then of course, like we're doing today, recording and then distributing to people so that they can, if people can't come on a Friday afternoon, they can look at the video at their own time, a time that works for them, and still gather that information. And of course, if there's the flip side too, we have some opportunities and some challenges with volunteer training. In particular, when it is virtual, you're trying to accommodate in any case, if it's in person or what, but you're trying to accommodate all types of people. And some people might have obstacles with technology. Are they tech savvy? Are they not tech savvy? And you want to be able to open yourself up to having all types of people volunteer with your organization. And so when we offer the opportunity for training virtually, we also will be meeting in person this year, and we'll be covering some of the topics in person. And also, as we move forward with relying on paper so much, like people for science fair used to write down all their scores on paper, and then we had people entering the data, which, after a full day of lots of people were very exhausted, the data entry could have been less than perfect. So what we are having people do is go home, and the judges are entering their own scores. And so we're relying on technology and people to use the computers to enter their own scores, but also in person during the day, during the event, we will have paper there for people who are used to using paper. So they can write their notes, but people who want to have their device right there, they can be entering in some information during the day. So it's trying to remember, what are all the possibilities and what struggles might people have? And in addition, it's various interpretations. People have various interpretations of what people say. And so we try to anticipate these differences in interpretations or some of these obstacles, and trying to make sure that we cover as many bases as we can. And then, of course, the day of, we have people in ready to answer questions that day of at the event. And hopefully we have anticipated the obstacles and interpretations and been able to address most of the stuff. But then if not, the day of is always crucial for in-person interactions. And of course, there's Zoom fatigue, where, we all have relied on Zoom and various other online platforms. And so will people watch our training? We hope, we'll have people attend, but will people do it? We're not sure. But day of, we'll be able to address any questions and concerns. So it's a lot when we're dealing with people, lots of variety. So this is an amazing resource that we have found, and this is in Minnesota, but the Minnesota Alliance for Volunteer Advancement, but they do serve people nationwide. Their topics do apply to everybody, anyone who works with volunteers. I attended this great volunteer impact leadership training that is 4 half days. It was like a Tuesday and a Thursday, and then a following Tuesday, Thursday half days. And it was all virtual, and it was amazing. I learned so much, including much of what I'm sharing with you today. And I highly recommend that. So check out mavanetwork.org. And they actually are having a nice talk coming up that is very relevant to people who are interested in learning to engage volunteers. On January 24th, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time, is Cutting Edge Strategies for Engaging Volunteers in the New Year. So I figured if people who are interested in this, they might be interested in that. That talk itself is either $25 for people who are members of MAVA or $50 for non-members, and $90 is an individual membership. So just FYI, some really great, just an amazing resource. Really high quality training there. So I would love to hear if there are any other questions or any questions. And if not, I would actually really like to hear what you all are doing with volunteers, and if you're hosting science fair, things like that. So first, any questions?
Jennifer, thank you. You actually sort of hinted at a question that I have, which is, what if people don't do the training? We have a virtual training for our biggest event because we have, similarly, we have judges who are supposed to judge student presentations, and we have a hard time recruiting the pool of judges that we need, the right number of judges, and put them in the right places and get everybody like onboarded before the event starts. And we do, 2 different Zoom trainings so that people can tune in person, ask questions, or watch the recording, right? But then some people never make it to one of those trainings, or they never tell us if they watch the recording, or some people end up walking on because we still don't have all of our slots filled. And so Saturday morning, somebody will say, oh, my colleague so-and-so can help, like, please give them some forms to fill out, to go and walk around the posters. And this drives us a little bit crazy. And then, not surprisingly, we have some inconsistencies when we go to look at the forms. You wouldn't think that you have to explain to PhDs how to fill out forms, but, obviously, as you are alluding, like, instructions are very important. And so wondering if you have any insights or experiences to share along these lines, suggestions for how to manage, when people show up who maybe haven't done the training, and any tips or tricks that you've got for us who are also in that position.
Yeah. I would, 2 things come to mind. One is, and maybe they're already on your mind too, but one is to do as brief as you can training for everybody, to maybe remind people about maybe the 5 most important things that they have to remember that day of. And then as the day progresses too, keep on reminding them, or remind them of the next step, but not too much. But what do you need to tell them before lunch? And then is there something else that you can tell them after, like, not too much. And then the second one is we have written and printed out, the rules, and had it available to judges for science fair. The problem is that, how many, you're printing 300 copies of, are they 5 pages each? And you're
right
in a folder, and it's like, are people really going to look at that? I don't think so. But
And
it's,
we also do written instructions and,
Yeah.
Give that to people with the link, when we
Yeah.
do online training. But yeah, similarly, questions about that.
But I think day of staff, just having staff available to answer questions, because that's exactly what we discovered this last year for our science fair. Even though it was virtual, people just, and people had questions. Well, what do I do with this? And a couple things happened that we didn't anticipate. People some of the students did not show up for their Q&A. And so are you supposed to close them out, but then they get 0 for that portion of their score? Or do you just have to say, okay, well, overall, their project was about an 80%, so I'll give them an 80% for that too. So the day of was crucial to have people available for last minute issues. But yep, they always come up. And
Always.
yeah,
Things you never even thought. Like every year we make our form more detailed and we add more things because we never thought this could happen, but it happened last year, so we better put a thing about it.
exactly.
And every year there are new things. I can't believe that just happened.
I know.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. But yeah, just having probably a couple people on hand, and then sharing that information with people so that you can respond to those kind of those unexpected issues.
That's what we need is somebody other than me or the person who's in charge of the program. Maybe we need a really an A-level volunteer who's done it 4 times already.
Mhm.
And maybe it's more of a peer-to-peer thing instead of me telling people how to do it. Maybe having that person who's experienced, who we trust, who can be that go-to person to answer questions or coach them through, walk over with them, or give them an overview training on the day of. Yeah, maybe that's what we need, is that person sort of on call.
Yep.
I was gonna add.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to add that it's not through a science fair, but I do speech judging, and we have a ton of judges, and it's only 1 day a year, and no one knows what they're doing except for the people that have done it before, and then 1 staff person, and there's not enough staff to train really.
Yeah.
And so I've done it probably 7 or 8 years now. So I basically train new volunteers, and one of the expectations going in is if you are repeat judge, one expectation is you're senior now and you help others. And that's kind of it's in the training too. It's you know how to do this already. Okay, the training for you now is to know enough to teach others how to do it. And when things go wrong, you've seen things go wrong. Now you can be a human troubleshooter.
Yes.
It works really well.
I like that idea. I mean, and we know from year to year, who are the people who demonstrated that they could do what we asked them to do it on time, fill out everything correctly. We have that list of those people that we can trust.
Yep.
And so maybe those are the people that we need to elevate a little bit next year. And we're also figuring out how to change our recruiting and our sorting of people a little bit so that we can feel better.
Give them a special volunteer title, maybe. Too.
Yeah.
I don't know, some sort of senior volunteer or super
Dragon
Slayer.
Volunteer.
Give them something cool that they want, because also it's cool to be able to say I've done this for almost a decade now,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we're doing too. Or maybe even a board member, if there's someone who, who knows that, or that's exactly what we're doing, is relying on other volunteers to do that, or maybe paying someone, apparently someone who has done that before just for that day to answer those questions. If I'm running around doing other things. So. Yep.
I like that idea.
Well, and I would, did you all have any questions? But I would love to hear from you. What do you, I have a question here. What do you recruit? What do you all recruit volunteers for? What do you all do? What do the various academies of science do?
Well, I'd love to hear from Michael, because in Washington, D.C., the local academy there is helping us a lot with our national event that's happening in March. And Michael, I don't know how hands-on you have been. I know there's a team of folks working on that, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you're maybe engaging your local Academy members.
Yeah, well, we did meet Paul Arvison, who's our junior academy vice president for junior academy, and I met with a couple of people from NAAS. Our big need for volunteers usually in normal times is science fairs.
Okay.
I don't know of any. I've done it. It's been a while since I did it myself, but I don't remember any very large amount of training. I think it was just kind of informal.
Yeah.
Usually people there have done it before. I've been a judge for Science Bowl, but that's not handled through the Washington Academy. That's handled through the Department of Energy. There's a bunch of volunteers here, and we do the National Science Bowl.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Nice. Thanks for doing that, Michael. We send our winners to you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Those kids are amazing, and we also have a science fair competition at Montgomery Blair High School in Maryland, and they're just unbelievably smart. I think a lot of the kids are probably have parents who work for NIH or somebody or a place like that. Yeah.
That's what I think too. It's like when I've been thinking about what are those recruitment message for our volunteers, it's just be amazed at
Right.
the level of knowledge of the Minnesota youth or whatever, of course I'm talking about Minnesota, but what is it when I'm there? What do I feel? And amazement and excitement is what it is. So
yeah, and our volunteers always say that too.
good. And
Yeah.
Amanda, do you do what do you do?
We do an annual meeting where we have student presentations, and so one big, it's our big event. So we have volunteers chair our sessions and run the sessions where we have people giving talks. And we also have judges who are evaluating student presentations because there are recognitions that we give to students. So that's our biggest event that we just kind of came out of. And so it's very fresh in my mind. But a couple things we do throughout the rest of the year are we've had a virtual series going where we have mostly members, sometimes people from outside Kentucky, doing virtual presentations online since 2020, and we call that Bench Talk Live, where we've had different topics, try to do like current events and things in the news. We did microplastics, and we did a bunch on COVID and PFAS, things like that in recent months. So we recruit volunteers as presenters for those programs, and that webinar series is also tied to, and honestly, like I got a little bit of that inspiration from DC Academy because they also have had like virtual programs with great science speakers, and a lot of the other academies do that too. So that was my inspiration for starting that series. But it's connected to a podcast and weekly radio show where we also support that. It's our members who run that, and we also are always trying to recruit volunteers to contribute a few minutes. If there's something you want to record about the work that you're doing or something interesting in science, like record it for a few minutes and send it over to the folks who produce that program. And we've had I've been delighted that some people, like specifically when we've asked in a targeted way, like, hey, you're doing behavioral research on rats or something, like, could you record 5 minutes and send it over for a program next month? And people respond pretty positively to that. People like to know that we're interested in what they're researching, and they like to talk about it if you give them a chance to do that. So that's one thing that we've tried to get people to volunteer for. And we couldn't do any of that if I didn't have the Speakers Bureau. And so the first thing you talked about was the volunteer form, having people fill out a form. We started several years ago, not a general volunteer query, but like specifically a Speakers Bureau. Are you willing to speak about your work and your research to a public audience, to a school audience, to the media, to policymakers, several different audiences. And we have a whole form that they fill out. How far are you willing to travel? Are you willing to do a virtual program, et cetera, et cetera. And then tell us a little bit about your background, your research, what you would like to talk about. And that's open to graduate students, and it's open to our professional members. And though that's my go-to list, we have about 200 people, I think, now who have filled that out. And that's my go-to list when I'm looking for a presenter for a public program. And I am just, bedazzled by the variety of expertise that people have brought, into those, into that list. So I can look around and say, wow, somebody's doing, some interesting research on hemp, in Murray, Kentucky, and I'd love to do a program on that, or, whatever is in there, like I can probably find something. Or now public libraries are requesting, there's a form on our website where people can request a speaker, and they can either find that speaker on that topic by searching the site, or I can find somebody for them. So that's been a great way to engage volunteers. And what I would like to do for them is do more training on science communications and support them more, to give them more resources and tools. But it's been great.
Good. Yeah, thanks.
A couple things I forgot to mention. We have robotic competitions here.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been to any of those, but as far as I know, I think it's the training is just you show up and they kind of tell you what to do. Then another one, as Amanda mentioned, we were trying to recruit people to give talks, which we record. And we also try to recruit people to write articles for our journal, which is refereed, but we sometimes you need encouragement to get people to write things up.
Definitely. I'll put the link in the chat for the Speakers Bureau. And I think I got that idea. I stole that idea from some other academy, actually. It doesn't, it doesn't cost us much to run that. It was, pretty much free. Yep. And it's a great way to just, get out there and get public with our science.
Yeah. Yep.
I just popped a question in the chat.
Yeah.
I can just verbalize it too. I was curious about, probably from all of you, the overlap in volunteer pools. So like, do people tend to just like have a lane and stay in it, or do they tend to kind of hop back and forth? Or if they're a volunteer, they do a lot of different ones. Like, are there different types of volunteers? And is there like a strategy for like one of the programs that's a way to get people in your experience? And then from there, they would, become more of like a volunteer that does other things. I guess any of these could be the answer, but I'm curious what that trajectory might look like.
Good question. Jennifer, do you have any
or
how to answer that?
Yeah, I think I'd love to share what we're facing at this point. So our traditional programs are the State Science Fair and Science Bowl, an undergraduate research symposium. And so we have had, it's been more where experienced professionals share their expertise, or, that they're serving as a judge. The organization decided, I think 3 years ago, that there weren't enough younger children of color being fed into kind of the STEM stream, right? I forget what how we term it at this point, but that we weren't getting the diversity that we would really like to see in Science Bowl, Science Fair, and as undergraduate researchers. So we started a program where we lead hands-on science and engineering activities with students, with the younger students, get them excited and get them realizing, hey, I can be an engineer. Oh, this is really cool science. I want to be a microbiologist. And we actually, so we have, 300, we rely on 300 to 400 people to judge our science fair. And we are struggling. I think we have 2 people signed up to do outreach with this one particular school. So we see a disconnect in in maybe people who, they know how to do science fair judging, things like that, but put them in a school with getting their hands all gooey with, young kids, maybe they're not comfortable with that. So we are struggling with that a little bit, but also people don't know us. People know us through hosting the state science fair, and they don't know us through the hands-on STEM stuff. So we are getting some newer, younger generation students who are Googling and saying, hey, yeah, I want to do hands-on science with kids. So we are getting those people in now, but it's very interesting when it's like, well, we sent that email to, how many 500, 600 people, and we got 2.
Wow.
So we're working on it though. And it's part of we're changing a little bit too, a little bit of who we are, at least what we're operating with. So anyway, anyone else?
We have a pretty, I mean, our membership is really large. We have 4,000 members. So
Wow.
I feel very good about the number of people that we've had step forward for different things, even though like on any given moment, like if there's a specific need, I might have trouble. Like we don't have quite enough, like I said, most people volunteering to judge the student presentations on the day of or whatever. But I also think there's a different pool of people who are interested in or who feel confident to do public programming as a speaker. Is a different, and there's some overlap. It's not that there's not any overlap, but I think there is a different list of people who are those people who are pretty comfortable like going and evaluating student presentations, because it's like they're academics, right? So like they know how to evaluate a student giving a presentation about their research, and they feel very comfortable with that. But I would like to offer more kind of trainings and capacity building for folks who might not have the confidence or might not feel like they have the communication skills, and maybe they don't. Maybe they're not really good at that public science communication, and they haven't had an opportunity to learn how to be a good science communicator. That is something that I would like to offer people a little more training about if we get some funding to do that.
And that's a professional skill to learn too. And
Right,
that would
exactly.
actually help them as they move forward in their career.
Yeah, and I think the conventional wisdom is that younger scientists, graduate students are very interested in this and really do want to do more public engagement. And I think that's an opportunity that we could tap into if we had a little more resources to offer that to our members. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm out there. And there are actually there's a couple student organizations at University of Louisville and University of Kentucky of graduate students who've organized themselves who are interested in doing outreach activities. So we have a couple of partner organizations that we can work through. But yeah, I would say there's somewhat different pools of people. Like the Speakers Bureau list, when I go through and look at those names, some of them I know as people who also volunteer for other things, but it's definitely not the same list.
Yeah, and there are some people who love science fair, some people who love Science Bowl, and some people who the undergraduate research symposium is a different thing itself. It's more of a poster and oral presentation, so it's different from the others, but there's some overlap within that realm. And then some people do the hands-on science, but we're working on more.
That's
Michael,
hard time finding folks to do that.
Yeah. Michael, did you want to add to that? Do you see a lot of overlap with the volunteers that you have with or do you all just really do the science fair? I guess you do.
I think it's kind of the same group of people. Usually they had a science background, not necessarily very highly technical. But...
Yeah, we want to ensure that our volunteers look like our kids. And so we are reaching out to, like I did a search, there's the Society for Black Engineers, and want to make sure that we're in, there was an Asian group that was out there too. It's like, want to make sure that we can reach out to those groups. So you can Google what's around you, what's in your state, and what professional organizations for people of color are out there, and see, hey, do you want to get involved? We'd love you to be an example to these young kids, example of a Black engineer. So
we have affiliate members, and the Society for Black Engineers is one of them. So
nice. Good.
Yeah, we also made contact last year with, we have a chapter in Kentucky of Beta Kappa Chi, which is a scientific honorary society for African American scientists, and another organization called National Institute of Sciences, that I think were organizations that were originally founded in a time of segregation when they weren't allowed to join other scientific organizations. But now those two organizations still continue, and they really are doing some great work, networking and doing professional development for their members. So we were happy to find them last year, do some collaboration with them, and they have chapters in a bunch of states, mostly HBCU institutions, but in a bunch of places. So that was a great place for us to network as well.
Good. I'll have to see if those groups are here in Minnesota. Now, one other question that we wanted to ask, just kind of in general, is so it sounds like Michael runs at the science fair, because we run the state science fair that feeds into the international science fair, science and engineering fair. And so we're wondering how other states operate. Do they like our whole schedule is set according to when the International Science and Engineering Fair is. But we're also wondering if people have their science fair, if they schedule their fair and send students to the Junior Academy of Science event. So I don't know if Amanda or Hallie, if you can talk about science fairs in your state, but definitely Michael.
Yeah, we judge the county science fairs.
Okay.
And I don't know what the state ones are, so we just do the county ones. And also some schools do their own science. They don't. I know Montgomery Blair, which I mentioned before, Montgomery Blair High School, they don't call theirs a science fair. They call it something else. And I think it's totally independent of, the regular hierarchy of science fairs.
Right. Yeah, what we're seeing is that we have lost some participation in the state science fair because it's in March, end of March, because then the International Science Fair is at the beginning of May. And so we have to select the students and then make all the travel plans, get them all ready and send them to ISEF in early May. But so many students, a number of students and a number of schools, they're not done with their projects until May. And so we're wondering how other states do it. But can you all speak to any other state science fairs that you know of?
I just want to say the county science fairs are usually in mid-March.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're usually around the country.
Do you know if is ISEF, do they send kids to ISEF? Do you know? Do you hear about the ISEF judges or anything?
I vaguely know that they do go on if they, they're win, but I don't know the details too much.
Yeah.
So we don't. Go ahead. We're involved mainly with the county level. So.
County.
I was going to say, Jennifer, there's a national trend of science fair declining generally. So it might be because of the timing, but it might not be because of timing. There are lots of other things that are kind of getting in the way of schools participating in science fairs right now, in the past 10 years. But we don't manage a science fair. That's another entity in Kentucky that manages there's entities that manage the regional science fairs and then the state science fair. So we have it. Yeah, we do the Junior Academy of Science, but it's kind of funny to me that they're parallel programs because I'm sure it's the same students participating in a lot of the same,
Yeah.
in different programs. And so it seems like a little bit of redundancy to me that, haven't quite stuck my nose in it that far, but, yeah.
Amanda, who manages the science fair in Kentucky?
I think the state science fair was bounced last year. It had been like one of our academic institutions was like hosting it, and maybe did they lose funding or something, or it got bounced around because they couldn't host it anymore or wouldn't host it anymore. I can't remember what the latest was on that. I don't remember if there was an update about it. Yeah, it seems weird that I wouldn't know that, but it wasn't major news across my desk if that happened. So I'm not really sure yet. We do have a relationship with the regional science fair coordinators because we are trying to poach students historically, we're trying to poach students who participate in those programs to then come and present at our junior academy program. But now we've restructured junior academy, so I'm not sure how those relationships are gonna. We're kind of reaching out to broader partners to recruit to our junior academy program now. So yeah, we have some relationship there, but it's not a super strong relationship.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, there are Facebook groups and things like that where science fair directors are all convening. So,
and I think there's tons of overlap in the people who volunteer for our program. Junior academy, historically, our junior academy, like people who would show up and judge are some of the same faculty members who, enjoyed going to the state science fair, regional science fair as judges. So,
yeah.
Well,
we've got a little bit more time. I was wondering if anyone wanted to work on any challenges they might have for fun recruitment messages, like what's a science fair without judges, something like that. Or do we want to brainstorm a little bit? I always love learning about how other people thank their volunteers and stay engaged with their volunteers. So we can do a working session and a brainstorming session on these topics, depending on what people want to do. Are either one of these screaming out? I would love to hear how people thank their volunteers and stay engaged. Maybe we can come up with some ideas for ourselves, but if anyone really says, I'm stuck on, how do we get more judges? Happy to work on that too. So.
You mentioned stickers, and we also bought little gifties. I'll show you. We made these little things this year that we gave to people at our annual meeting, and it's just, I don't like useless swag. Like I was trying to do something that's mildly useful, and so it's like a little bit
nice, and
it's recycled paper. So we made those for people. They cost like $1 and something each, I think. So I bought a big box of those for people, which is a nice little gift. And then it has our logo on it. I think a pen, something like that you actually use instead of, we all get a lot of swag that I don't think is really useful, but we definitely don't do enough. I mean, I'd like to do more. I'd like to do more engagement. I love your idea of doing a dinner, or events like that are even, social events or professional development, kinds of opportunities that can also be social time for folks to get together and network. Yeah, I love that idea. And we haven't done much of that throughout the year. We don't have that really in our workflow. But,
yeah,
we've done like shout outs in the newsletter, shout outs on social media sometimes, recognizing, people's time and saying thank you for your time.
Yes, I know. I think I read something like thank people 5 times for every they've done. So keep
good
them
advice. Very good advice.
And
of course, there's this, like I do this too.
Yes.
I have 2 of them to go out right now.
Snail mail. Oh, I love it. We Yeah, for one of my jobs, we had a smaller group, so it was easier to get together with a dinner. But we met, it was towards the end of COVID, and we met at a pavilion at a park. So we were outside, but we were also sheltered. And I just went and got Vietnamese, I got kind of easy the sandwiches or the to-go containers, and everyone just got their own thing, and I got to hang out and sit at the tables and chat. We were able to provide results of their work. They were
Nice.
stream monitors and monitoring streams, and so we were able to provide them with the results from their monitoring. So I'd love to be able to do something like that, but we haven't yet. And yeah, cost and we don't know who all would show up, but I think we should try it. That's next summer.
Mhm.
It's low cost if you're at a pavilion, and usually for nonprofits, those are donated by the county. So get them in
I
there.
think if you're at an event, like if it's not a separate thing that you're asking people to come out to, like if it's like the lunch, like feed people lunch after the event, or have a little happy hour after the event where people can come and socialize, or something that's not like a separate thing that people are going to come out to a separate event, or like a recognition. I mean, I'm not big on banquets. People aren't really big on banquets, but like a special reception that's just for, VIP people or something like that.
Make it fun. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Silly hat, if you
Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
I was thinking too, a big thing is like, why do people go to things? Like, connect it to the motivation, and why do you volunteer in the first place? Connecting to that motivation too, I feel like for me is really key. Like, as a person who volunteers places, and when I'm thinking about thanking volunteers, that's how I try to think about it. But like, one of the ones I was thinking for the junior academy or for the science fair would work for both. Students could send thank you cards to judges that they really connected with, right? Like, if they had a good conversation with someone and that person asked them really hard questions that they liked, and they thought that person was inspirational or cool, like, give them a free thank you card and an opportunity to work on their ability to network and build future connections. So there's skill building, and you're thanking a volunteer, and that volunteer is there because of the students. And so if a student is connecting with them, it's like win, win, win. I feel like.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah, and it just
Maybe
costs you the card and the stamp. You're giving the student like the pre-stamped envelope.
And the ask. That's it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like
Maybe
that
we'll
idea.
do that this year, provided we just leave it at every station for science fair.
Mhm.
Oh, that would be cool. That's really neat. That's probably, it's a nice connection for both of them.
Mhm.
Well, and I don't have any more questions. I just have my thank you. I don't know if we're done yet. We can continue talking too, but to wrap up for the presentation and the recording side of things, here's my email address if anyone wanted to email me about anything, if you had any suggestions or any questions. And I wanted to again highlight the MAVA, Minnesota Alliance for Volunteer Advancement. MAVAnetwork.org is just an amazing resource. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we can continue any more conversations.
Okay, I think I will stop the recording too.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And